You are sitting there, the conversation was flowing, then she says it. That quiet cutting line. Not a shout, just disrespect. And for a second, everything inside you shifts. Your shoulders tighten, a heat rises in your chest. Not rage, something quieter, deeper. A voice you almost don't want to hear asks, why did that land so hard? That single moment, that's the real beginning. Not her words, your reaction to them. Most men never notice it. They jump straight to fixing it. They snap back, they go silent, they over explain, they try to pull the frame back, and in every one of those moves, something slips away. Because the disrespect itself isn't the trap is older. It started long before she spoke. We tell ourselves a story. If she respects me, I am solid. If she sees my strength, I am strong. If she values me, I have value. That story feels like truth until the moment it cracked. The disrespect isn't the problem. Your need for her respect is. When you tie your worth to how she sees you, you have already handed her the remote control to your nervous system. You feel it in your body before your mind even catches up. But here's the part most men miss. What if you could feel that pull and simply not follow it? That need didn't appear overnight. It grew in the quiet places where we confused love with validation, where we mistook her approval for proof that we are enough. Attachment psychology calls it anxious entanglement. Your identity quietly merged with the relationship. So when she disrespects you, it doesn't feel like her mood. It feels like an attack on who you are. Your nervous system doesn't debate philosophy. It reacts, heart rate spikes, breath shortens, cortisol floods in. The same wiring that once kept your ancestors alive now mistakes a sharp tone of moral danger. Ego defense kicks in next. That ancient part of you screaming, protect the image, prove you are still the man, and identity attachment seals it. You are no longer responding as a whole man. You are responding as the version of you that needs her to stay in the story. You are responding as the version of you that needs her to stay in the story you wrote about yourself. That's the illusion. The fantasy that one perfect response will restore the balance, that if you just say the right thing, hold the right frame, she will see you again, she will respect you again, and everything inside you will settle. But reality is quieter and harsher in its honesty. Her disrespect is information about her, about where she is in that moment, about her own unregulated emotions, her own unexamined fears, her own internal weather. It is not a referendum on your worth, it never was. Your body already decided you are under threat. That clench in your jaw, that urge to defend or withdraw, it's not weakness, it's biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. The mature man doesn't fight the feeling, he watches it. He lets it pass through like a wave that has nowhere left to break, and in that single choice, the frame returns to its rightful owner. We chase the fantasy because it feels safer than the truth. The fantasy says, I can control how she sees me. Reality says you can only control how you see yourself. Marcus Aurelius would have smiled at this moment. He would remind you that other people's words are like dust in the wind. They land only if you open your hand to catch them. Your peace was never theirs to give or take. So the response changes, not because you found a clever comeback, but because you stopped needing one. You feel the sting, you notice the old wiring fire, and then you choose. You don't explain, don't punish, you don't chase her back into respect. You simply remain present, unshaken. The frame isn't something you hold on to, it's something you already are. When you stop abandoning yourself, we all carry the fantasy that one perfect response will rewrite her view of us forever. But reality is more merciful than that fantasy ever was. Her disrespect is never about your value. It's a mirror to her own inner storm. The moment you truly see that, something inside you stops bleeding for approval, and the real question becomes, what will you do with the freedom that's left? That shift isn't dramatic. It's almost silent. It happens in the second after her words land. You breathe. You let the nervous system settle. You remember, my identity was never hers to define. And in that remembering, the power returns. Not to win the moment, but to no longer need to win it. This is where identity rebuilding actually begins. Not in grand declarations, not in leaving the room or raising your voice, but in the private decision. I will no longer outsource my self-respect to anyone. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He called it becoming who you are. Not by fighting the world, but by refusing to let the world decide who you must become. You start small, You notice when the old attachment tries to pull back in. You feel the fear of what if she pulls away, and you stay away anyway. Not to prove anything, but because staying with yourself is now more important than keeping her approval. Self-respect stops being a performance. It becomes your default setting. The man who no longer flinches when she tests him, not because he doesn't feel it, but because he no longer believes that test defines him. The real work isn't managing her disrespect, it's rebuilding the part of you that ever needed her respect to feel whole. Every time you choose presence over reaction, that muscle grows quietly, steadily, until one day you realize you are no longer waiting for her to validate the man you already are. There comes a moment when her words land and nothing inside you moves to meet them. No defense, no withdrawal, just calm rooted presence. That's not coldness, that's the quiet sound of a man who has finally come home to himself. And once you hear that sound, you can never unhear it. So the next time it happens, and it will, you will already know what to do. Not because you memorized a script, but because you remembered who you are when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is respecting you on cue. You simply stand there, calm, whole, unmoved, not to win her back, not to prove a point, but because the man you have become no longer needs the world's permission to be himself. That's the response, that's the power, and once it's yours, no one can ever take it again.